completely dedicated to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the effect of Torah's Chassidus, number one. Number two, Legarish mitanu kol midah ra'a u'meguna me'amidas hativiyos, to banish from within us all negative character traits, all lowly, disgusting, natural, coarse character traits. The shana teva midosav, the shana is to change over our midos, that they should be positive. And number three, that all of our inyanim, all of us yosenu of inyanenu, both our holy actions of Torah and mitzvahs and our interactions with the world in inyanei ha'olam should be with the kavana mitzvahs l'shem shamayim asher chafetz Hashem. When one puts it into perspective, we often think, we learn Chassidus, we could always be learning more Chassidus. What is the objective? What is the goal? What is the purpose? What is Chassidus supposed to accomplish? Is it just supposed to that we have an awareness of these wondrous ideas? It's supposed to change something within us. It's supposed to change something within us in how we live our lives and our perspectives in life. And in these three nekudas, that we are given over completely to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ein oid milvado, that there's nothing else in the world, nothing else in my life, nothing else out in my existence other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And number two, that as a result of this awareness, so we want to transform ourselves. We want to lift up ourselves. We want to become more refined. We want to become more edel. We want to become more menschlich, and to push away all of the negative midos that are inside of us, to legarish mitanu, to drive it out. And then number three, to have an awareness of Hashem in everything that we do, that everything is exclusively devoted to Him. So in a nutshell, the Rosh Hashanah L'Chassidus, the day that the Eibishter gave to us, Pnimius Toraseinu HaKadoshah, is Kaviyachol, the Eibishter saying, I want to have a relationship with you. I want to be connected with you. Not just once a year, not just once a week, not just once a month, but in every single moment of our lives, we have an awareness of Him. We have a consciousness of Him. And that is the actualization of the purpose of man in this world. Not the malachim, but man who has a seichel enushi, man who has a nefesh abamis with midos megunos and all of our baggage, that we should come to a recognition of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in our lives in a way that we sense it, and in a way that He lives in our consciousness in every single moment of every single day. So I think it's important always to keep the objective when we learn Chassidus, and it's so easy, I know for myself, to get caught up in the details where we sometimes lose sight of the objective. Lose sight of the objective is, how is this impacting my life? How is this changing my perspective in the world? How is this changing my perspective on life? How is this making me a better person? So l'chaim, we should taka b'matzliach in b'mekayim all of these inyanim, starting with the limud achsidus, but then applying it into the dark achsidus. L'chaim l'bracha. Sama lecha nafshi, Sama lecha Ken b'kaidesh chazir Niraisus ma'avaydecha Ken b'kaidesh chazir secha Niraisus ma'avaydecha Chalirais Uschach Vaydecha Yamama L'chaim. In many years, Yud Tes Kislev falls out in the week of Parshas Vayishlach. Like this year, it's in the Parsha of Vayeshev. And bearing in mind the Torah of the Shalah HaKadosh, that the events, the Yom Tovim, which happen at a particular time of year, are connected to the parashas in which are read in that time of year. We can find remazim, we can find hints and allusions to that particular Yom Tov within the parashas HaShavua. I want to share a pirush of the Kli Yakar from last week's parsha. When Yaakov Avinu is returning from Haran, he's about to meet Esav. And the Torah tells us, Vayivasar Yaakov levado, Yaakov remains, he crossed over his family, the river, and he remains alone. Vayavek ishimai ad alois hashachar. And a person comes, we know, Rashi tells us, this was Sarai shel Esav, and wrestles with him all the way through the night. He sees that he's not able to prevail over Yaakov Avinu, he's not able to defeat him. And so he touches him al kaf yerecha, he touches him on the kaf hayerech, on the thigh socket. And then comes morning, he leaves. And the Farshim discuss this bizarre story and what it represents. The Kli Yakar says a fascinating idea, that it's a personal battle, it's a personal struggle that we have. And what is the battle against? And again, perhaps more in the Lashonos of Chassidus, it's a battle against Re'iyas Elokus. It's a battle that the Sarah Shel Esav, who has Satan, who has Zaharu, who has Malach HaMaves, wages against us to prevent us having a re'iyah and elukus, to be able to perceive, to see godliness, which of course Chassidus explains. Then what does re'iyah mean? Re'iyah means his amtus. When you see something, seeing is believing. When you see something, it is absolutely real to you to the extent that no one can convince you otherwise. And re'iyah and elukus means that our awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of course, it doesn't mean re'iyah mukhshis, it doesn't mean physical, tangible seeing. But what we call it, re'iyas ein haseichel, that with the mind's eye, or the heart, re'iyas halev, we have such a certainty in the existence of the Eibishter and his involvement within the world, that it's as if we see it, and therefore no one can shake us from it. Because when a Yid has re'iyah in elukus, when a Yid is connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in such a powerful way, as though it's ki'ilu huroya mamish, that it's as though we see the Eibishter clearly and therefore leaves no room for sveikus, leaves no room for doubts, then we're connected, we're plugged in. And when a person is plugged in, when a person is connected, when a person is enthused, when a person is passionate, so then they're immune completely. Al derech, like the Tzemach Tzedek is masbir in the Maimer of Schiras HaMolek, the Tzemach Tzedek explains that there's a state of Eretz Toiva Rechava, Eretz Avas Chalav Udvash, and that represents someone who has Ava B'Tanugim, someone who sees Elokus, someone who has a passionate, powerful connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and a feeling. So they're immune to Amalek. Amalek comes Dafka Lechtech Acharai Bamidbar, when a person's only way of Acharayim, when a person's connection to Hashem is weak, when a person, Al-Malek is Begematria Safek, when a person does not have a strong connection to Hashem and an awareness of Hashem and a truth in Elokus, so then all of a sudden we're susceptible to Amalek. That we're nechshalim acharecha, when we're weak in going after HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then by Yavoy Amalek, then Amalek can come and he can chap on Kaviyachol to a Yid and make problems. So he explains as follows. The Satan, the official name of the Satan, the Malach of the Sarish Al-Esav, is Samael, Samach Mem Aleph Lamed. It's not a name that we like saying. This is the name. And says the Kli Yakar that this name of this Malach, and we know that the name of something represents its very essence, the very essence of its being, the very essence of its purpose, is Miloshan Summa, to blind. Because that is the objective of the Satan. The Samael wants to blind us to the truth of Elokus, wants us to blind us from seeing the Eibishter in the world, seeing the Eibishter in our lives. And that's why the Pasuk says, Vaya'avek ish imoy. Vaya'avek is miloshen avak, dust. Because he kicks dust into our eyes. When someone kicks dust into your eyes, you can't see anymore. You're blinded by it. And it says that Hela avak ad kisei hakoved, that this avak was to stop us from seeing the kisei hakoved, that that's his objective, to spiritually blind us to recognition and awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the Samuel, says the Kli Yakar that Samuel is shutfoi shel anavim. He's the partner of grapes. Grapes we use to make wine. And wine, yain and meshaker, is something which makes a person drunk. How's he shutfu shel anavim? So if you take in oisius chilufim, one of the you have oisius is you substitute each letter for the letter that comes afterwards. So the samach is substituted with an ayin, the mem is substituted with a nun, the aleph is substituted with a base, and the lamed is substituted with a mem, anavim. Because just as when a person drinks wine, when a person drinks mashke in an unrestrained way, they become physically blinded, they become confused, they're not able to see straight, they lack clarity, and their vision is cloudy. So too, the Samach Mem tries to do the same Baruchnis. He tries to deaden our sensitivities and cause us not to see Elokus. But of course, the pasuk says, "Vayakil lo yachol," he was not able to prevail. But it says, "Vayinaga b'kaf yireichot." What does that mean? So he explains. I'm not going to go into actual explanation. I don't recall it off the top of my head. But he says the yerech is a metaphor for the soidos haTorah, the secrets of Torah. And the fact that he struck him in the kaf hayerech was to stop a yid from seeing the beauty of the Soidos HaTorah, and thereby be able to have a kricharain, to be able to have an effect on him. You know, we ask, David HaMelech says, Gal einai v'abita niflois mitoira secha. He asked the Eibush to open up my eyes, I should see the niflois in your Torah. Unfortunately, and it's a very symptomatic situation, is that many of us can remember the first time we learned Chassidus. Whatever it was, a maimer, a sicha, on whatever Inyan it might have been a beer on Inyan and Tefillah, or a mitzvah, a Yom Tov, and remember that feeling of wow, hafla, when you learn this Inyan, when you learn something in Chassidus and the whole revolutionary perspective of Chassidus. Imagine what it was like the first time to hear the Alter Rebbe saying the Maimer Ani L'Doidi V'Doidi Li Melech Basadeh. Imagine what that would have been like. This complete revolution in the perspective of Chodesh Elul. And each person in our own lives, we learn Chassidus initially, we have this sense of, wow, this is incredible. Niflois Mitorah Secha, we see it. But then, like all things, it becomes mitzvahs anashim l'muda, that we become habitualized. In fact, interesting, it says that's where the Satan struck Yaakov Avinu was on the regel, the yerech. Regel is melashon hergel. When a yid's avodas Hashem is just in a way of hergel, just going through the motions, just doing things because of his regilus. So that's when the Sarah Shel Esav is able to affect him. So, when we learn Chassidus, how often do we stop? Especially if it's those in Yonim, which you have the Nahar Kvar, where we've already learned this idea before. Every year comes around and it's a Melech Basadeh, and every year comes Pesach, it's a Michle Demem Nusa, and every year comes Shofar, which is the Tzakas Halev, whatever it is, and we're no longer so wow about it. We become habituated. In fact, there's a mile in the Chisaron, when kids go to school, young kids, they go to with a Chassidish Chinuch, with a chinuch which is based on Chassidus, based on the Rebbe's teachings, so they come home with certain things which are just pashut by them, right? You come home, Parshas Truma Tetzaveh, it's pashut. What is that? It's a cheder tzivas Hashem. It's the building of Mishkan V'Asli Mikdash Shechanti V'Soicham is talking mamish b'chol echad ve'echad Yisrael to every single Jewish person, man, woman, child, that their home has to be Mishkan Hashem, and that's pashut. And sometimes when things in that way, where it's just taught to us from we're young, or where we've learned it over and over and over again, we lose the hispailos. We lose that sense of wow. We lose that sense of this is incredible. Okay, mizman lazman, you learn a mimer which is just like mind blowing, and we get excited again, right? So that's Galeinai. We asked the Eibishter, Galeinai, open our eyes. We should see the niflois mitoira secha. Should see the wonders of your Torah. So says the Kli Yakar that is where the Samach Mem is able to get to us. The Samach Mem stops us being nispal, stops us getting excited, and stops us from being able to see the beauty of Pnimis HaTorah, which is what places us face to face with the Eibishter. It's what places us face to face with the Eibishter. Obviously, the fact that Yaakov came through is in the sinas koyach, and Maisa always similar labanim, that we're immune, that we're able to prevail, we're able to triumph. But the message is a very simple message. Right? That when a Yid is connected, when a Yid sees Elokus, how do we do that? How do we see Elokus with the Ein HaSeichel? It doesn't just fall in your head one day that there's an Eibishter and there's a truth of Torah and mitzvahs, and the Eibishter creates Boire Oilamus, and there's a hafla of the Eibishter beyond the Oilamus. These things don't just naturally come to your mind. You have to learn. And learning in Nigla of Torah is not going to give it to you. Nigla of Torah can connect us to the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Pnimis HaTorah brings us face to face, direct with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you learn a Maimer, we're standing. Of course, there's the Baal Hashmua Oimed Kenegdoi, the Baal Hashmua, the one who says the Maimer. It's bringing us face to face with the Eibishter. It's giving us that recognition in our Ein HaSeichel, Ein HaLev, to whatever extent we're capable of grasping, that we perceive Elokus, like it says in the Rebbe Rashab's letter, that is the whole purpose, that our whole existence is given over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As I say, unfortunately, we sometimes lose that perspective, and maybe that's what it means. When we have there's a famous Maisa that someone asked the Rebbe Rashab made a comment when a person learns nigla of Torah, so they could forget about the noise in Torah. This is the union of Birchas HaTorah. The way Chassidus explains this, Birchas HaTorah reminds us there's not just a Torah, but there's a noise in Torah. When a person learns nigla of the Torah and you're involved in a shur and a para and a chamor and in yonim of tarubas, basar b'chalav, whatever it is, you could forget about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because you're dealing with inyanei ha'olam, you're dealing with physical matters, ad latainas sheker. So therefore, we need to have a reminder, and the Birkas HaTorah is a reminder. Or like the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, that every hour when there's a new tziruf lamaila that's happening, a person has to hit the refresh button and refresh our kavanah. Halavai, that we're learning that it comes every hour, we have to refresh the kavanah. Every time we learn Torah, I have to have a kavanah. The kavanah is that this is coming from a nois in our Torah, and when I'm mekasher this, I'm creating a yichud nifla, etc., etc. We have to have that kavanah, we have to arouse. But when a person learns Pnimis HaTorah, it's not shaykh to forget. The person learns Pnimis HaTorah is not shaykh to forget. Someone asks, how could it be? The same way you learn Nigla of Torah and you forget about the nois in HaTorah, you could learn Pnimis HaTorah and forget about the nois in HaTorah as well. So the Rebbe Rashab answered, Zadin in Hilchos Pesach. It says, if you find chametz on Pesach in your house and it's Shabbos or Yom Tov and you can't therefore touch it, you can't burn it, you can't get rid of it, so you have to cover it over. Why do you cover it over? Not because of Bal Yirah or Bal Yamatzeh, but in order that you don't come to eat it, because we're so regulated to eating chametz a ganze yar. So if you see chametz in your house, a person might come to eat it, so you cover it over as a warning. But when you take the chametz out to burn, then the chametz doesn't have to be covered. Because the kol kula that you're involved in is destroying it, why would you come to eat it? Your whole engagement with it right now is for the purpose of getting rid of it, you're not going to come to eat it. So when it comes to Nigla de Torah, so Nigla de Torah, where our whole year round we're involved in Gashmias HaOlam, and that's our daily interactions. We go to work and we go to study, and we're involved in this and that and the other. So it's very easy for us to forget there's an Eibishter and think there's only a world, there's only a Metzius von Welt. And therefore we need to have the constant reminder, we need the heker. And that heker is a Birchas HaTorah, that heker is we need to remind ourselves that there's a noise in our Torah. Masha'enke, when you're involved in Pnimius HaTorah, of course chametz is a metaphor for the Yetzer Hara, so you have to expand it, but the whole Metzius of Pnimius HaTorah is discussing the Eibishter, and therefore you won't forget it. And maybe that was by Yomim Mahem, I don't know, Bisman Hazeh, but it is possible maybe not to forget about the Eibishter, but we lose that sense of wow, we lose that sense of real appreciation, of a geschmack in a maimer, of a geschmack in a Vart Chassidus, of a geschmack in a Sicha from Rebbe, where we get excited and we think, Ashreinu Matoiv Cholkeinu, there's such a Reichkeit here, there's such beauty here. One of the ways you get that is by learning Chassidus with other people who are not familiar with Chassidus. And I highly encourage that for every person over here. The Avoid of the Chshafetzu Meinesecha Chutza, right, the Hirah from the Baal Shem Tov, which is the whole purpose of Chassidus, is not limited to Mashpiim, it's not limited to Rabbanim, and it's not limited to Chavrei HaKoilel. It's a Hirah for every single Chassid Satan in Hafatzos HaMainos Chutza. And every one of us knows someone that we're able to reach, someone we're able to connect with, if it's sharing a short vort on the parsha before Shabbos, or if it is sending an email, forwarding something to someone, or if it's making a shir to make a kliyus with someone on a regular basis, or when they have the Batei Chabad make learning evenings where they want to bring anash, and you get a call from the shliach in the Beis Chabad who says, we're making a learning evening, we're bringing Amukarabim, we want anash to come and learn with them. So we don't try and make excuses, and sometimes the excuses for the Yetzer Hara, me ani umani, me? What do I know from Chassidus? I'm myself only a beginner, I'm only a basic level. So the same way, if you know Aleph, you teach Aleph, you know Aleph base of Chassidus, you teach Aleph base of Chassidus. Same idea. But when you learn Chassidus with someone who's not used to or familiar with learning Chassidus, and you see their wow, you see them when they get something which just blows their mind, that we just, by the by, of course, this is what it is, then that reignites a spark within you. And I have a schus, which I have usually a Thursday night shir. It's on holidays now with the girls from Merkos Seminary. Some of them have learned a little bit of Chassidus, some of them have no exposure to Chassidus at all. And one of the things you have to do is when you're giving a shir to someone who's a beginner, you have to prepare yourself. You have to prepare very, very well to know what to give over and how to give over. And each Indian, when you start to look, I mean, you see this, so Seder Chaim will come back to this Nukuda, but let's not lose sight of the hafla of Chassidus, the niflois mitoirasecha. Let's not lose sight that this places us. When you learn a Maimer, we're being placed in front of the Eibishter. The Eibishter is being placed in front of us. The Eibishter is coming into our minds in a way that we can grasp it. Kafi Iyadu Maseges, each person what we're able to grasp. And then not only will that give us a chukka, a rotzin to want to learn more chassidus, but then when we learn it, we're going to want to understand it, and we're going to want to share it with others, and then we can have exactly what it says over here. V'aleinu. This is our job today. Lahayir levaveinu our avodah. This is Isrus de Lasata. This is Isrus de La'ela. The Isrus de Lasata of Yud Tes Kislev is Lahayir levaveinu b'yom hazeh, to arouse in our hearts on this day a chayfetz v'rotzin pnimi ve'atzmi. How many of us could say, put up their hands and say, this is what I'm feeling tonight. This is what I really, really want in my life. My entire chukka, my entire desire, my chayfetz, there's rotzen and there's chayfetz, my pnimistic desire for everything in this world is only to be able to have. And this ties in the fact that we have the Hayom Yom today, which is That's a chukka that we should all have. How do we get to that? What is the emtzai? Is Toras Chassidus. So we have to go back and capture that flame of wow that we had when we first started learning, and to make sure that we live with that every time we're learning a maimer, to find that nekuda, to abit and niflois mitaras l'chaim l'chaim. No, this I said something from here before. Moshe Faber from Aliyah, Bnei Aliyah. Ra'is Bnei Aliyah b'hem watim. About time of Chassidus. His chili achayisirayasi. Hainasi samasi. Ya wa 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 ya wa ya wa wa ya wa 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 ya wa. That's what I heard.
Make it very interesting.
L'chaim. One of the Nakudas, we speak about Chumash Bereshis, as Rashi brings down in the very first Rashi ala Torah, is the Torah should have begun HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, and instead the Torah begins with Sefer HaYashar, Chumash Bereshis, which is the story of the Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Yosef, and the Shvatim. Because Maisa Avos Siman Labanim, that the stories that happen to the Avos is a siman for their children. And the way that Ramban and many others explain, that means that all of the Morais, all of the things that happen to the Avos happen to their descendants. That just as Avram Avinu went down into Mitzrayim and came out B'Rechush Gadol, so too the Yidden went into Mitzrayim and came out B'Rechush Gadol, etc., etc. And the Rebbe takes a different perspective on this, that not only is the Maisa Avos a Siman Labanim for the historical events and occurrences that would happen in Toldos Yimei Yisrael, but is a Hayra Unasinas Koyach in the avoid of every single individual Jew throughout the entire generations, for all time. That a Siman is not just a sign of what's to come, but is an empowerment and a representation of what we go through in our own lives as well. And one only really appreciates this when they learn the parshas, a Chassidish parsha. Right? There's an Indian of the Chassidish parsha, the Maimorim of the Alter Rebbe, Torah Or and Likutei Torah. As I'm saying, with the Zeit, you have to live with the times, which the Maril, the Alter Rebbe's brother, explains that we have to live with Parshas HaShavua, which means we don't only learn Parshas HaShavua, but we live the Parshas HaShavua. We have to look in the Parshas HaShavua and find lessons and directives and inspiration and encouragement that speaks to us in our times, in what we're going through. So, if that is true on the level of Galia de Torah, it is certainly true on the level of Pnimis HaTorah, the Chassidish Parsha, that we learn the Parshas HaShavua with Chumash with Rashi, Hagam, that Rashi also has the Yena Shel Torah, but most of us don't see that unless we're learning a Sikha, and then we see the Yena Shel Torah. But when you learn the Maimorim of Torah, or Likutei Torah, you live with the Chassidish Parsha, you see the Oirais. So I mentioned before that when you learn with people in Yanim of Chassidus for the first time, and you see how they're just amazed by what Chassidus says. So you take, for example, last week's Parsha, the Maimer from Alter Rebbe, in the beginning of the Parsha, Vayishlach Yaakov, Vayetze Yaakov, 2 weeks ago, when it speaks about the Maisa with Yaakov and the stones, is a Maimer from the Rebbe, a long Maimer, a Mugadik, a Maimer, V'shavti B'shalom El Beis Avi, where you start to read that this is not just a story about Yaakov Avinu going to Haran and he stops on Harabais and he collects stones and he puts them on his head and they have a fight who's going to be under the head of the tzaddik and they all become one stone, etc., etc. That this is the story of the neshama going into Galus. Yaakov Avinu is Yud Ekev. Yaakov is the neshama, the Yud of Shmoi Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, coming down into the Ekev, coming down into the lowest of places, into a guf, into a nefesh ba'amis, in going to Charan, which is Charan at Shomokim, which is a place which is spiritually a spiritual abyss. And Yaakov's avodah with the stones is an avodas habirurim that is involved in being malaket the avonim, and the avonim become one evan. It's a whole different story. You're not reading a story that happened thousands of years ago with a guy called Yaakov who happened to have a dream on top of a mountain, but you're reading the story of your own neshama. You're reading the story of your own day-to-day life. When you learn a mimer in this week's parsha, in Parshas Vayeshev, where it says Shir HaMalois b'shuv Hashem esir hayinu k'cholmim, we were like dreamers. That this is not just talking about Yosef in his dreams. This is not just talking about Paro in his dreams. This is not just talking about David HaMelech in his dreams. This is talking about the experience of every Yid in Golos. So when we wake up from Golos, Hayinu Kachomim, what is a Cholom? What is a dream? Our whole life is a dream, explains the Alter Rebbe. How so? Go and learn in the Maimer. And when you have this is not just the dream of Yaakov Avinu with bundles of wheat in the field. This is avodas habirurim. The avodas habirurim that you take scattered sheaves which are in way of pruda, in a way of separation and dispersal, and you ma'achad them one together, and then kama lumasi. It's a whole different perspective. When we learn Torah Sachsidus and living with a mitzvah, it's a completely different mitzvah. It's a completely different Yom Tov, and it's a completely different understanding of our own lives. So l'chaim, it has to be after Tova that one of the Rebbeim made up said a lashon that on Yud Tes Kislev, just as you have the cheshbon nefesh of Rosh Hashanah, and Krish Mashalamit is the time of cheshbon nefesh. So on the days of Yud Tes Kislev, a person has to make a cheshbon nefesh adaita the nafshe keilu, as if the Alter Rebbe is standing in front of their face. And the cheshbon nefesh has to be that the Alter Rebbe was moiser nefesh for Torah Sachsidus. The Alter Rebbe sat 53 days for 53 prakim of Tanya. The Alter Rebbe is moiser nefesh kipshutoy for Torah Sachsidus. He gave us v'chayis nafshenu nitan lanu. What are we doing with it? How are we being menatzel? How are we using it out? How are we utilizing it in our own lives? And is it just lashon hergo? Yeah, we learn chassidus alavai. It should be a hergo. That you learn chassidus before davening. Yeah, you learn chassidus Shabbos in the morning and before davening. It should be a hergo. But more than that, that's not what the Alter Rebbe was moiser nefesh for. The Alter Rebbe wasn't moiser nefesh. The mizman lazman. We open up. That we have a kviyus in learning chassidus. We have to make achotos to make up kviyus in limud chassidus. And I'm not here to go into shiurim. You have like the halachas to talk about mitzvahs. Each person, like Rashi brings in Parshas Yishlach, about each thing. Each person has their own, depending on their malacha. What exactly? When do they have to have their zivug with Hakadosh Baruch Hu? When do they have to have their limud chassidus? When do they? Each person knows what exactly they're supposed to do. Their times. We have to have the limud chassidus. And number two, don't become desensitized to it. Don't. We should see the niflois mitoira secha. We should understand and realize that every mimer that we learn, every sicha that we learn, is putting us in front of the Eibishter, putting the Eibishter in front of us, so that he could rest in our minds. That is the ikar dir b'tachtonim, that our consciousness is completely filled with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, kol inyaneinu v'chol asiyoseinu, are completely dedicated to him. That is ultimately what Chassidus gave, and that becomes an v'chayis nafshenu. Then we become alive. We become alive in our avodah l'shamishes koini. So l'chaim, we should give nachas to Alter Rebbe, and we should say in Ashreinu Matov Chalkeinu Manoim Geraleinu that we are mekusha to Alter Rebbe. We go in the drachim of Alter Rebbe. We're learning the Chassidus from the Alter Rebbe and all of the malim mekoimai, all of the Rebbeim, the sins, and we should taka b'poel the kiyum of the promise, the avtacha the Melech HaMashiach gave to the Baal Shem Tov, the Shafutza Ma'anesecha Chutza, and the Chutza within a person starts with his own Graba Seichel Enushi. That's the Chutza within us, and then we should be Zoika to Ka'asi Mar Malka Mashiach L'chaim. Amen. Good to see you. Come to see you. Oh, really? Yeah. Did I see the figure? Yeah. I thought I saw it drop. Yes, who else came with you? Just my daughter. Beautiful. Yeah. All this way out. First time you traveled there by yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Very nice. The last time I did a boy trip. Beautiful. How's it your fundraising? So you're doing also big things. You're working on making the big things. It looks big. From a bird's eye view, what's going on? It seems like you're well? Yeah. Very nice class. That's everything doing. Right now, he's rabbi, he's a teacher. So on there. He's teaching somewhere. Right now, he is, he does a school Ache. It's a country. You should for kind of kids who, it's like, still mainstream, but the kids who kind of handle mainstream. Great ship. He's your teacher. He teaches stuff like that. He's there for the year, and it's very long. Okay. I think you have to switch it, not to come sit with. You have to be by the camera. Introductions? I don't think so. I think I know already here. Well, that's what I was asked to do. Here's the cold water. Oh man, yeah, big weekend. Yeah. But I barely saw you. Yeah. I saw you by the picture. Yeah. Josh makes a serious program. You have to.
Yeah, so just an introduction. So we have with us Rabbi Moshe Feiglin, who is returning to Australia. It's a product of Yeshiva College here in Melbourne. Son of Motto Feiglin. Moshe Feiglin is doing unbelievable things for those who follow in New York with the Moised of Aliyah, which caters to boys and now to girls, and giving tremendous support, creating a place where they can connect to their Yiddish, connect to Chassidus, connect to the Rebbe, each in their own way, and has done amazing things to helping people. And it's supposed to be able to have him here to share with us at the Farbrengen. He just had a very successful charity, and it's an opportunity for those people who want to be mishtatef in the work that he's doing. It's still open, I believe.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
wow.
still open,
Whole plug.
And you could join in and assist.
You want to thank you, Yanni. Usually when I first speak, I'm talking to my students. But I'm looking around the room, I'm saying I'm talking actually to my teachers. So many people here were my teachers in Yeshiva, my teachers in YG. So I'm not used to Farbrengen for my Rebbes, but anyway, I think the schus is mine to be here Farbrengen for some of my childhood teachers. So l'chaim, good yotif. So I'm far from a big mashpia, but a few ideas. I guess everyone can share something. Everyone has some thoughts about to share. So one thing that struck me when I was learning the parsha is that Yaakov Avinu, when he favors Yehuda, and then he favors Yosef, and because he favored Yosef, that was a cause that made Yosef so hated amongst his brothers. And if you look at and anyone who knows basic human interactions or parenting skills will know that if you don't like your child, the best thing you can do is favor him. And when you favor him, all the other kids will be jealous, and the other kids are going to pick at him and bully him, and you're going to make that kid a hated kid. And Yaakov was a very smart man, and Yaakov, I'm sure, knew this. So if Yaakov loved Yosef so much, why is he favoring him? Why is he showing him such a favoritism? Not just in a family situation. I'm sure we have a lot of Rebbes here, and even in a school situation. If a teacher starts favoring one of the students, they're going to be picked on. They can become the teacher's pet, and not going to have any friends. So why would any parent or any teacher favor a child? That's the worst thing you can do. And as we see, that it was successful. I mean, Yaakov favored Yosef. He gave him this extra coat of many colors, and because of the coat of many colors, that made Yosef so hated. And because he was hated, that led to them going down to Mizraim. And like a lot of the poskim say, that the Yidden's demise, a fall to Galus Mizraim, was a result of this extra coat of many colors that Yaakov made for Yosef. So that's the question that's asked. What was Yaakov thinking? So one of the answers is that jealousy is a terrible trait. Jealousy is a very negative trait. Nobody should have any jealousy. But there's also a level of jealousy which is a good jealousy. There's a jealousy which is, we see, Kina Seifim Tarba Chachma. There's a jealousy we saw last week's parsha where Rachel was envious of Leah's good deeds. She wasn't jealous that Leah had children and she didn't. She was envious of the good deeds she must have had, which merited her to be able to have so many children. Envy is something where you see somebody who's better than you, and you see someone who's on a higher level than you, and you want to become like them. You want to reach that level. It's not like saying, I want what they have. That's jealousy. But it's like saying, I want to reach where they reach. And even how you remember, it talks about when it comes to Gashmis, we should always look at people who have less than us and be grateful for what we have. But when it comes to Ruchnius, we should also always look at people who are above us and strive to reach that level and strive to be that. And when it comes to Ruchnius, envy is actually a healthy trait, because envy actually pushes us and encourages us and pulls us to try to reach higher levels and pull to higher places. So Yaakov Avinu, he wasn't trying to make Yosef hated. He wasn't. The goal wasn't that they should be jealousy. The objective was that there should be envy. What's Yosef? What was so amazing about Yosef? What was special about Yosef that where he outshone his other brothers that should cause envy? And the one thing we see is that Yosef saw that the sons of Leah were criticizing and putting down the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah or Zilpah. That they would call them the slaves. They used to call the Shvatim. They came from Zilpah. The other brothers would call them slaves, and Yosef would befriend them. Yosef took a certain liking to them, and he connected with them, even though they weren't. They came from the Zilpah. They didn't come from one of the Emais officially. So, but Yosef had a special connection. First of all, Yosef himself was brought up by Bilhah. After Rachel passed away, Bilhah became his surrogate mother. So Yosef felt a connection to Bilhah, and therefore Yosef felt more of a connection to the sons of Zilpah. And that Yaakov recognized that trait that Yosef had, that even though he was the son of Rachel, who was the favorite wife, nevertheless he was able to look and embrace all the sons of Zilpah, unlike all the Bnei Leah that would put them down. And this is so when Yaakov Avinu was trying to educate his children, and he saw that Yosef got it right. So let me favor Yosef, and the other brothers will see that I'm favoring Yosef, and they'll learn from Yosef and take on the same thing, and they'll also start to treat all the Shvatim equally, regardless of whether they come from one of the Mois or where they come from Bilhah Zilpah. They should treat everybody equally and not make any distinction. And this is obviously a shitta, but this is where Yaakov Avinu was going with his whole derech, that he wasn't trying to create animosity and jealousy amongst the Shvatim, but he's trying to create a healthy envy, the positive envy, which obviously didn't go as planned, but that was the goal. That envy is actually has a lot of healthiness to it. When we're envious of people who are better than us, and we strive to be like them, we aim to be like them, and we try to reach that level. And this is a very important lesson as it comes to Yud Tes Kislev, because you know that one of the chidushim of the Baal Shem Tov, which was passed out to the Maggid and to the Alter Rebbe and to all the Rebbeim, was a very revolutionary concept in that time, whereas prior to the Baal Shem Tov, if you were Talmid Chacham, if you were a big Vir, you mattered. If you're Am Haaretz, you didn't matter. And that was accepted rule. That was how it was. That was life, and that was norm. That was considered the norm. And then when the Baal Shem Tov came around and said actually the chassid the simple yid who davens with tears, who says words of Tehillim with tears, their tefillah can reach higher levels in the big Talmid Chachamim, and they're just as important and just as relevant. When the Baal Shem Tov came out with this concept, everybody was this was craziness. This went against everything everyone stood for, and everybody there was a lot of opposition towards this whole concept. It went against everything, the philosophy that everyone stood for. So obviously the Baal Shem Tov was under fire for his approach, and the Alter was under fire. But yet today we see how correct it is, how wise it is, how everyone matters, everyone's important. And if you try to make distinctions between some people who are high and who are lower, then we're missing the whole purpose. The whole purpose of Chassidus is we're all limbs of the same body. One of the foundations of Chassidus is every single Jew is limbs. We're all one human being. We're one unit. And whether you're the head or whether you're the feet, we're all part of the same unit. It's not like we're all different individuals and some are higher and some are lower. We're all the same thing. We're all part of the same thing. And every limb needs the other limb. And if a person's lacking one limb, whether he's lacking his head or whether he's lacking his foot, he's incomplete. We're incomplete. Every Jew, Kol Yisrael Reivim Zeh Lezeh, every Jew is incorporated from each other. Every Jew is combined with one another. We're all important to each other. And we all matter equally. Every single Jew matters in the same level and an equal level. So this is the message that we have to embrace on Yud Tes Kislev, is we have to look around and look at every single Jew and look at everybody who's in our midst and realize that we have to look out for each other. We're responsible to each other. We have a cry for each other. If you see Chabad was not just designed to go out there and reach out to the outside world and bring them closer. Chabad means every single Jew. And one of the chidushim of Aliyah, the Chabad that we have in Kreitz, is that the dafka inside, within our community, within our circles, within our circle of friends, we can also be makar of people. We can also bring people in. We can also see people that are struggling. And we see people that are struggling, we can reach out with a nice word, with a kind word, with a word where instead of somebody who feels like you might look down at him, you talk to him with respect, you talk to him as an equal. You have no idea what kind of effect you can have on somebody. One time I was traveling, I was flying to a wedding of one of my Talmidim, and he was getting married in Atlanta, and I was standing by the gate ready to board the flight, and I see that there's a guy there, frantic, he's pacing up and down, and I saw he looked very stressed out. So I said to him, "What's the matter?" He told me that he missed his morning flight, and now he was meant to catch this flight. He was on wait list for this flight, and he has to catch this meeting. If he misses his meeting, he's in big trouble. And they just told him that there's no room, and he's not going to make it on a flight. So he's all nervous. So I asked him if he's Jewish. He goes, "Yeah, I'm Jewish." He says, "Okay, well, let's put tefillin on." He goes, "Well, I have nothing else to do now. Let's put tefillin on." So I put tefillin on. And just as I put on his sharosh, they announced his name over the loudspeaker, and they told him that a seat just opened up, and he's getting on a flight. And he was so excited. This guy was over the moon, and he gave me a big hug, and he was he made his meeting. And here's like an example of when we look around in our midst, in our own circles, you never know if there's somebody around us that's struggling, and we have an opportunity. We could be aware, we could say something, we could ask him how he's doing, and you never know where that could go. Or we could just continue on our way. There was one Friday night at Aliyah where after davening, sometimes guys sit around at Farbrengen a little bit, and we were sitting around Farbrengen, and I saw one of the guys who was married. He looked very down, and I said, "What's going on? Why are you so down?" He said he got a letter in the mail that week that something went wrong in his business, and his business, which he invested a lot of time and money and effort into, which was Baruch Hashem doing well, looks like that he might get shut down. The government might shut him down. He was very worried about it. So I told him that, first of all, Shabbos, you should never worry about business on Shabbos. You have to be positive. And second of all, I said, we've got to have emunah and betachon that it's going to work out. So, Mitzvah Shem, next Shabbos, I want you, this guy Baruch Shem was quite well to do. I said, next Shabbos, I want you to make a big Suda Seidah in Shul. We're going to announce it. We're going to advertise it. Everyone's going to come. You're going to get all the good all the geschmack zachen that people like it Farbrengens, all the taivas, and we're going to make a big Suda Seidah. So he said, okay, if that's what you recommend, that's what we're going to do. So the following Shabbos, as he said, he went all out. Every possible taiva you could imagine was there. Everybody came. It was a packed house. Everyone had a great Farbrengen. And then that week I was like a little bit nervous to call him. And then finally on Tuesday, he calls, in the middle of the week, he calls me up. And he says, guess what? I got to tell you this story. He said that his wife just called him up. They got a letter in the mail, and the letter in the mail says that they're going to give him another chance. They're giving him a second chance. He's not going to shut him down, and he can keep his business going. And he said what made the story even more interesting is the day that he got the letter was Pesach Sheni. So on Pesach Sheni comes a letter in the mail that they're giving him a second chance. And Baruch Hashem, he's gone much bigger and better since then. And he's a Baruch Hashem very matzliach. He's a big Baal Tzedakah. So here, okay, you're gonna have to wait and hold for a long time. Anyway, the point is, here's a guy who was struggling, could have just not said anything, and nothing would have happened, or could have said, "What's going on? What's the problem? What's the issue?" And you never know, how far one little conversation could go, one little situation. Wherever we are, we learn according to one of the foundations of Chassidus is that every leaf that falls off a tree is a shkacha pratis. Every single thing that's going on around us is all hashgacha pratis. It doesn't happen randomly. So wherever we find ourselves, wherever we are, there's always a mission. There's always a calling. There's always a reason why it happened. And wherever we are, we have a power. We have a Christ to make a change, to make a difference, to do something positive. We had another story. Once it was we have a Thursday night Farbrengen. Every Thursday night at Aliyah is a Farbrengen. And one particular week, a guy walks in the middle of the Farbrengen, and with tattoos, with some earrings. He walks into the Farbrengen. He sits down, and he happened to be sitting across from the screen. And that week we happened to have the Living Torah from that week playing on the screen. So he sits down, he starts eating, and he looks at the screen, and he says, "Rabbi, where's the remote control? I need the remote control." I said, "Okay." You give him the remote control. He presses rewind, he presses play, and he says, "Rabbi, you're not going to believe it. I sit down, and I look at the screen, and I saw the Rebbe giving my mother $1, my dollars." Right then and there. We could have said, "Listen, you got to clean up your act. You can't walk in here like this." But no, he was meant to come in, meant to sit the Farbrengen, and he saw the Rebbe give his mother $1. So, just another little story where we see how everything is a shkacha pratis, and wherever we are, we have a responsibility, we have an achrayus, we have a power to make a difference. The stories go on and on. Baruch Hashem, now we started a school this year, a trade school for teenagers, because unfortunately a lot of kids, don't make it through school, and they don't last at school, and they're home, not in a good space. So we build a space for them, and you build it, and they come, and when they come, they're matzliach. And a lot of these kids that come through our doors didn't succeed in school. They didn't succeed there. They felt like a nobody, but suddenly, when they're embraced, they do very well, and they grow, and they're very matzliach. And Baruch Hashem, we see how they come around. They not necessarily with school the right for them, but in business, a lot of them do very well, and they get married, they start families. Baruch Hashem, we're making 10 plus weddings a year from our chevra. So it's really a big bracha that we see how when we follow what Chassidus tells us, we follow what Tanya tells us, we follow and we have that Ahavas Yisrael, not just Ahavas Yisrael like we had in Hayom Yom last week, that we have to have Mesiras Nefesh for a Yid that we never met in our lives, we never will meet. But we also have to have Mesiras Nefesh for the Yid that we do know, the Yid that they do see in our lives, and the Yid that we do have a kesher with, that we are involved with. And we never know that somebody who's sitting right opposite us, somebody who we see davening in shul with, or somebody who looks down, somebody who's going through their own struggle, someone's going through their own difficulty, what a nice word can do, what a smile can do, what a friendly embrace can do, what a hug can do. It can really be a lifesaver. So
How do you say Rob? Story of Rob?
Okay. My father just reminded me that my father was flying to. Maybe you should say the story.
No, you said from LA to New York.
Father was flying from LA to New York, and next to him, my father's davening. Next to him, there's a guy. My father saw this guy's watching him daven. So my father said, would you like to put on tefillin too? You're Jewish. He goes, yeah, I'm Jewish. You want to put on tefillin? He goes, well, I have nowhere else to go. So he puts on tefillin, and this guy, my father told him about Aliyah, what we do. This guy's a secular guy, lives in downtown Brooklyn. Very successful, actually. Very wealthy guy. And he loved the idea. He loved the concept of Aliyah. He loved the fact that we took kids who were struggling, kids who dropped out of the system, dropped out of school, who were doing nothing, and we built a home, we built a community, we built a whole a Chabad house for them, and he loved this idea, and he started coming around to Aliyah. He started coming, getting to know the guys, and he connected with a lot of guys. He always says, he felt connected, even though he didn't grow up with it. He said, I wish I had Aliyah when I was growing up. He's now in the 60s, and this guy started becoming more frum. We arranged a pair of tefillin for him. He started tefillin every day, and
is it done?
Yeah, and he's also a big donor. He's one of the matchers of our campaign this year. And what made it even more interesting is this guy. He's very well connected, and he's actually used to work for Mike Bloomberg in Mike Bloomberg's office. He was his right hand man when Mike was the mayor of New York, and he started getting very involved with Aliyah and involved with Chabad and becoming more frum. And this guy now, Mike Bloomberg sent him on a mission to Israel to try to help stimulate the economies that were hit hardest by October 7th. A lot of areas where used to be very popular places and had a lot of infrastructure, a lot of industry were really knocked out by October 7th. And he went there to try to connect different pieces using political instinct that he has, and to try to rebuild a lot of these small towns in Israel. So this guy who is now helping Baruch Hashem, now helping Eretz Yisrael. He's there. He's very involved. He's very active. A guy who had no kesher to anything before now walks around with a Magen David, and he walks around with the other necklace about the hostages, and he's helping Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because my father saw him on a plane, and he said, "Do you want to put on tefillin?" From one experience. So l'chaim, wherever we are a shliach. We don't have to have the title shliach. Every yid is a shliach, and we have to remember we have a power on our shoulders. L'chaim.
Very good. Like it very nice.
Monday, yeah. Find out we're at the bar. On Shabbos Day, I'm speaking at the Dominion. Let's cut off this week. And two daughters, one married daughter and my little girl. Yeah, Kaplan, Shani's son. We'll see. Yeah. You got any other Farbrengens tonight? You going to any other Farbrengens? Dominion has one. YG has one.
YG has one. Go to YG. Obviously YG now.
Oh yeah, I might get a YG too. That's it. That's exactly good. Hey, it's so nice and nice. I get to see you. Was it another Irish? 10 o'clock. Good. Is that for the shots? Ellie, Mazel Zeta. The newest grandfather. His daughter married Chaim Drusen's brother's son. Chaim Drusen's twin brother. Ellie, so like, much better now.
Someone that Chaim
Drusen's twin brother.
Yeah.
This is Mechuta. What? You should with that. Something a bit more cautious for you. Exclusive. I don't seem like it's a Farbrengen here. It's very short. Not a lot of people. Not so many people. Just took pizza.
What? You put your name on pizza?
Did you come and buy saffron or saffron? Honestly, it doesn't matter if you go Sam in LA. You're just changing planes. You're American, right? By the way, what about guys married your cousin? What about guys just married your cousin? One of our guys, Malia, just married your cousin. Dexter. Yeah. Actually, Dexter, yeah. You know the Dexter? Girl, yeah. Dexter girl, married one of our guys, yeah. I'll pay you. Fine.
I found that very inspiring. Yes, the stories, the Sikurim, and the tattoos that he's done on the screen, and your summary that we're all ambassadors. Yes.
Always be aware. Yes.
I'm Israel Chai.
Exactly.
May your friend in Israel succeed.
Amen, yes.
Yeah.
Amen, yes. Thank you.
He's going to get his daughter to bed.
She said 15 minutes. I think I already went over. How was this sales pitch?
Oh, 1 second. Have you got any other?
You expected 15.
Give you a minute to think of something. Have you got any other stories?
Another story?
Chaim, just while Rabbi Feigelman is thinking of many of his stories to share with us, the minhag is to make a Chalukah Sashas like the Alter Rebbe writes in the Geras HaKodesh and the Siyum from Tanya to divide up the Shas in every single place. So there is on the WhatsApp groups, there is a link for the Chalukah Sashas, everyone should be mishtatev and take a Masechta.
Yeah, I have more stories, yeah.
Yeah, I think anything.
Yeah, sure. All right. Yeah. Okay, another story comes to mind. A guy I met. There's a guy I used to see him a lot. We have a tefillin booth on Kingston Avenue. People are always asking, why do you have a tefillin booth on Kingston Avenue? You're trying to catch people on the way to 770 and the way back. I said, well, believe it or not, there are plenty of people that aren't on the way to 770, and they have no intentions of going there. So they put on tefillin at every week. People come, they put on tefillin. We already have regulars. They call our booth on Kingston. They call it their Chabad house. I know that's where they put that tefillin on Friday. They come there once a week and they put tefillin on. And believe it or not, these guys, even when it's freezing cold outside, they don't care. They're rolling up their sleeve and they're putting on tefillin, and it could be below 0 Celsius, and it doesn't stop them. Real Mesiras Nefesh they have. And one guy who would come put on tefillin there, Baruch Hashem, after that he became frum. His parents are shluchim somewhere in Russia, and he wasn't frum for many years. And then from that, putting on tefillin at the tefillin booth, he started coming more and more interested in Yiddishkeit, and he got married. Baruch Hashem, now he's married. He has about 5 kids. He's frum. He's putting on his own tefillin every day. And I asked him once, what was it that made you frum? What was it made you want to become frum again? You obviously you grew up on shluchas. You know what Yiddishkeit's all about. You weren't frum for many years. What suddenly made you come back? Was it the tefillin? He said, honestly, what made me come back is when I would come down the street, I would walk on Kingston Avenue with no yarmulke, and I kind of felt like everybody would kind of look down on me. And when I saw you, you gave me a big smile. And when I saw that smile, I felt accepted. I felt love for who I am, and that made me want to become frum again. Just from the fact that you gave me a smile and acceptance and a hug, even though I wasn't wearing a yarmulke, and people would say, how you talking? How could you go on Kingston or Rebbe Schudna without a yarmulke on? And that he got plenty of. But not many people were giving him hugs, and because of the hugs that he got on Kingston Avenue, that was what made him realize that this is Yiddishkeit is something that he wants, not something that he should be running away from. Have another guy that he lives right across the street from Aliyah. Well, back then he was single. There was an apartment across the street from Aliyah where a lot of guys that would come to Aliyah would live there.
In the street. And
right across the street is on East New York Avenue between Brooklyn and Kingston, those know Crown Heights, close to Beis Rivka. And we used to have guys that would be hanging out and having parties over there, and they would look from their balcony and they would see when the Kiddush was starting in Aliyah, and when the Kiddush was starting, they would come across and join the Kiddush. They had it all organized.
Do that in shul, like it's not a bag.
So one Friday night, we're all coming out of shul, and one of the guys from this apartment, he was literally pulling up like right next to us, and he obviously wasn't planning on us all coming out of shul while he was pulling up, but obviously we saw him, he knew we saw him, but I completely pretend I didn't see him, and we just went on our thing. We didn't even say a word, not a peep. And I saw him afterwards, and saw him many times afterwards. Never brought it up. Years later, he told me, "You should know that Friday night, when I was pulling up, parking my car in front of Aliyah on Friday night, and you guys didn't. You never said a peep about it. Never mentioned or brought it up. That was one of the things that made me realize that I want to be frum." So, not to say you should never tell something about Shabbos or anything else, but when you have somebody who obviously knows what they're doing, and you don't, instead of berating them about it, you just, intentionally not make a big deal. That can have such a more profound. This guy right now, he's married, Baruch Hashem, he's frum, he does Chittas and Rambam. He won't go to sleep without doing Chittas and Rambam, and he's got 4 kids, and he's a big supporter of Aliyah too. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. So
keep on going, Mike. The stories are getting better.
No, what he means to say is he's so successful with them is that they even give them money.
Exactly. Yeah, even if they don't have it.
Better put your money where the mouth is.
That's right.
Anything else? Another nigga. Might think of another one.
You have stories. You have a lot of stories also.
I didn't prepare.
You don't have to prepare. Everybody's prepared.
She's got you gone 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Two daughters. Two daughters and a son-in-law.
Happy birthday, brother. What day is your birthday?
So today was my mother's birthday, and Shabbos Chof is anniversary.
Yes, it is. Actually, I think your nephew's really close to you.
My nephew? Oh yeah? I teach him. Yeah. Sweet boy. You're such a sweet boy. Okay, yeah. Yeah, he came home with his from wedding, yeah? Yeah.
He thinks about you like when you're on the car.
Yeah. All I do is I hug him, that's it. Give him hugs. Hugs. That's what I need. Huh? Share more? Tell him? Yeah.
Can I tell people
You want to say something else? I'll say something else.
You say something, yeah?
And then you'll say something else.
Yeah?
well, fine.
Fine.
If you give me something for Chaim, I'll have to say something.
You have to, if you speak, Tati.
That's what it takes.
Tati, if you speak, you have to stand here in front of the camera. You have to be in front of the camera. Yeah. Tati, come. Okay.
Chaim, Matul Begin's going to share something from his experience by the Kibbutz HaShluchim.
I do want to share something from the Kinnis. There was a big Australian delegation organized by Moshe Khan and Josh Goldhirsch. And just want to share some of the unbelievable things that happened because of that. Before that, I just want to share one other thing. It was 50 years ago exactly tonight on Yud Tes Kislev that I walked into this room one day after my chasana, and I came after the Sheva Brachos. This room was packed. 50 years ago exactly. What the Rebbe said this week on Jem, he spoke about 50 years, Jem anniversary. And I came in, and I remember Rabbi Zalman Zorobransky, Rabbi Nachman Zalman Gurovich, Rabbi Grona, I think even Rabbi Pelov was still around with us, and coming in, giving me Mazel Tov and everything. It was just a very warm thought, and I started singing Sheva Brachos Nigunim on the Yud Tes Kislev Farbrengen. And because it's exactly the same night, 50 years later, it's the half century, I figured I'll just share that point with you. Thank you. At the Kinnis, which nearly everybody here is aware of, I'm sure there were many here that went to it, but somehow Josh Goldhirsch managed to get this year quite a large group from Mizrahi to join as well. It's very, very interesting to see how they were makabel, to see all the minhagim and the way that it happens and the magnitude of it, how many people came to it, and also the whole Crown Heights and how it's davening, and how they told me, it's after Marav and I'm still wearing my talis. Not in my life have I done this. Because they were Farbrengen all day. There was one Farbrengen at Moshe Rabashkin's place. Many of you know who it is. Many of you read the books of the family. There's one Farbrengen, he's got a massive house and on President Street. And he somehow manages with the council to get hold of most of the street to make an enormous sukkah in Tishrei. And he has so many chefs and so much food coming in there that anybody in Crown Heights over Tishrei that wants a meal, they know they go there, and they're not fed cheap food. He gets the best of the best, and he pours it out with such harchava. It's a pleasure to see. He made a Farbrengen for us Australians, and maybe 30 or 40 of us went, mainly the younger generation than myself, mainly, as I said, Moshe Khan, Josh Goldhirsch, and Chevra, and the Mizrahi guys of the same age. And he was telling them about how they were discussing Hachnosas Eirchem and how you have to look after those that come into your city. They come for a Shabbos, whether they're Frei people, whether they're from people, whether they're from a different group, but you take them in warmly and what you can achieve. And they got talking and they asked him what he does and how many he takes. And how many does he take in his house on a Shabbos, ever? What's the maximum you've taken? So he said, the maximum I've taken in my house of a Shabbos is 150. They said, what? 150. I mean, a lot of these guys live in bigger houses in Howard and Lemire and double blocks and tennis courts. And he says, yeah. He says, how do you get in 150 people in your house? I know it's a big house. How do you get 150? He says, because all of the rooms, we have double bunks, and all of the rooms and the basement and everything, we fill them up next to each other. And he said, what about the children's room? He says, all of the children's rooms are double bunks. They've got friends to stay by and mishpacha to stay by. So somebody said, what about your own room? You and your wife's room? He says, yeah, we get 4 double bunks in there. Where does your wife sleep? She's got friends. She's got mishpacha. He said, where do you sleep? I have a car. These guys could not believe it. But he's talking emes. He's not making it up. And this is the Hachnosas Eirchem that happens over there. And it's something, I'm not telling anybody to have 150 people in their house or Shabbos, but just that extra person that comes up that you meet during the week in business or at school or in university or yeshiva, wherever you are, you meet them, come for a Shabbos. You never know what it means, coming for a Shabbos. You start like that. Beryl Lazar was Farbrengen another night at Moshe Pinson's place. And Beryl Lazar said, he was telling he Farbrengen beautifully. And he stayed with us until he could, and then he had to rush. They were waiting for another Farbrengen, the Earl, and a big group were waiting. But we schlepped him every second we could out of him. He was so interesting. And he was telling us at one stage, he was working on his work. I don't remember which work, but he had to stay up all night doing it. And the following day he was very tired. But things had to be done. There were things happening. And a second consecutive night he had to stay up. And he hadn't slept already for 48 hours. He said, tonight, doesn't matter what, I've just got to go to bed. Anyway, things happened, one after the other. And the third night in a row, he could not sleep. He said, and obviously the fourth night he did. He says, but on shlichus, sometimes you never know what happens. You have to just do these things. And maybe that's one of the reasons why he's so successful. And he's turned a place like Russia that that was all the Yiddishkeit was underground, and he's turned it to one of the places with more Lubavitch Meisters anywhere in the world. I'm sure it's not the top, but it's right up there. Anyway, so all I'm just sharing with you on Yud Tes Kislev, Moshe has stories. We all have stories, and we all do our little bit extra. So that we should be zeicher to do what the Rebbe told us. We should have the Gula Shalem, the God of Mamish. And I think maybe Moshe is ready now. Got another one?
Just to finish off, that you can't have a Yud Tes Kislev Farbrengen without mentioning this famous story of Ayeka, which I'm sure we know, but it's not just a nice story. It's very relevant to what we're saying. So Ayeka was that when Alter was in prison, there was one of the gods was very well learned in Tanakh, and he says to him, What did Hashem mean? Why did Hashem tell Adam after the Eitz Das? Why did he tell Mayaka, where are you? Well, Hashem knows where everybody is. Why did Hashem ask him, where are you? So the Alter gives him the obvious answer, I am. He was should not to startle him. So you should come, you don't want to scare him right away. Start off, where are you? But this God knew knew this already, because I know what Rashi says. I want to know what the Rebbe says. I want you to tell me your pshat. So the Rebbe told him that when a man reaches the age of whatever, he said the exact age of that God, when a man reaches this age, he has to ask himself, Ayeka, where are you in life? Are you doing what you need to be doing? Are you experiencing what you need to be experiencing? Are you achieving what you need to be achieving? And the Friedrich Rebbe says about that story that at that moment when the Friedrich Rebbe, when the Alter Rebbe was explained the deeper meaning of Ayeka, he was experiencing such a level of spiritual ecstasy from the torture he was receiving in prison. He was giving him so much pleasure because he knew that this is Mesiras Nefesh. He was literally going through Mesiras Nefesh, that he was at the point of Kalas Nefesh. His neshama was about to leave his body. But when he was forced to explain Ayeka, that grounded him. That reminded him, 1 second, no, I got to stay down here. I can't just let myself get swept away by the incredible Mesiras Nefesh I'm having, but I got to stay here physically and endure this. And this is a lesson, it's not just a lesson for them, it's a lesson for all of us. Ayeka. Every morning we wake up, Ayeka, what am I doing for my own avodah, for helping those around me? Am I looking out for other people? Am I aware? Am I fulfilling my purpose of being a ner l'hayir and lighting up the world? So l'chaim. Talking to myself as well. Chaim.
Not a number two. She's loving it.
Yeah, they do. It's automatic. Ellie, gonna YG after? Yeah. Huh? Africa. That's where Rabbi Cohen goes all out. Rabbi Cohen goes strong, apparently.
I've got nothing here as well.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't go in there.
Your son Nasi? How old is he?
I'm not going to stay
Maybe later. I gotta get home and put my daughter to bed.
How old are the kids at home?
6 and 23 and 26.
The ones that come
Yeah. My oldest and my youngest. And her husband. I'm older and she's staying somewhere else. She's married. I'm not saying that.
Marriage in here and Israel.
Wow.